So, you know that incredibly specific feeling when your brain finally just catches up to your eyes.
Oh, yeah. Like when things just suddenly click.
Right. Like picture yourself scanning this crowded train station and you're just looking at a sea of random faces. And then all of a sudden you realize the person you've been frantically searching for is standing directly in front of you.
It is a profound physiological shift, honestly. Your nervous system basically hijacks your body for a fraction of a second.
Yeah, your breath just completely stops.
Exactly. Your stomach drops, your pupils dilate, you just freeze.
It's that pure split-second shock of recognition.
And, capturing that exact fraction of a second in any kind of art form is just a monumental challenge. Usually a painting gives you the action itself.
Right, like mid-swing or something.
Yeah, or it shows you the aftermath.
Yeah.
So freezing the precise psychological pivot from total ignorance to absolute realization is incredibly rare.
Which is exactly why I am so excited about the stack of sources we are taking a deep dive into today.
It's a great collection of material.
It really is. We've got a pile of recent art history journal articles, some theological analyses, and these absolutely incredible high-resolution digital scans provided by the National Gallery in London.
Those scans they're beautiful.
They're mind-blowing. And we are using all of this to unpack a 400-year-old masterpiece that managed to capture that exact aha moment.
And did it perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even better, this painting actually hid a literal secret in plain sight for centuries, just waiting for someone to finally have their own moment of recognition.
Which is just wild to think about.
I know, right?
Wow.
So the subject today is Caravaggio's first version of the Supper at Emmaus, which he painted in 1601 when he was just 30 years old.
To ground us in what we're actually looking at, this scene is pulled straight from the Gospel of Luke.
Okay, set the stage for us.
So the premise is that two of Christ's disciples are walking along a road to a town called Emmaus, and this is just days after the crucifixion. A third man joins them on the road.
Yeah.
They talk with him for hours, and eventually they stop at an inn to have dinner.
And the entire hook of the story, the whole tension, is that the two disciples have absolutely no idea who they're walking with.
They are completely blind to his identity. I mean, they share the road, they share space, they breathe the exact same air, but they don't see him.
Wow.
And Caravaggio is not painting the resurrection here. He is entirely focused on the split second at the dinner table when the stranger blesses the bread and the disciples' eyes are suddenly open to the fact that they are sitting across from the risen Christ.
Looking at these high-res scans, the way the painting hits you is almost cinematic.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like a dolly zoom, that camera trick where the lens zooms in while the camera pulls back and the whole background just seems to warp and collapse.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
You can practically feel the gravity in the room shift. But what really stands out to me in these close-ups isn't the holy nature of the scene, it's how incredibly grubby everything is.
Well, that grubbiness is the defining hallmark of Caravaggio.
I mean, the guy on the left is pushing his chair back in total shock, and as he throws his arms out, you can see his elbow.
Yes, the torn sleeve.
Right. It's this sharp, bony joint poking right through a massive tear in the sleeve of his green coat. The men have receding hairlines. Their faces are deeply sunburned.
Very weathered.
Yeah, their hands are thick and calloused with dirt under the fingernails. They look like guys you'd see fixing a wagon wheel down the street, not, holy biblical figures.
The man on the left with the torn sleeve is Cleopas, who early traditions identify as the brother of Joseph, which makes him Christ's uncle.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and to understand why Caravaggio painted him looking like a day laborer, we really have to look at the artistic standards of 17th century Rome.
Right, because this was not normal back then.
Not at all. At this time, the Renaissance hangover was still in full effect. Biblical art was supposed to be highly idealized.
Gotcha.
Characters were draped in immaculate, glowing silk robes. They had perfect gem-sculpted bodies and serene faces.
So like the ancient world's version of an Instagram filter?
Essentially, yes. The prevailing philosophy was that sacred subjects required an elevated, noble depiction. But Caravaggio had a radically different theology of art.
He went the complete opposite direction.
He did. He would literally pull homeless men, sex workers, and street brawlers from the alleys of Rome, bring them into his studio, and paint them exactly as they were.
That is so rebellious for the time.
His belief was that the divine only matters if it interacts with our messy physical reality. If the divine doesn't touch the mud of everyday life, then what is the point of it?
That makes the reaction of the innkeeper so much more interesting because You know, there is a fourth person in this scene.
Yes, standing in the back.
Right. You have Christ, the two disciples, and then the guy who runs the tavern standing right beside the table.
Notice his posture, too.
Mm-hmm.
He is leaning in. He's listening intently.
But his face is completely blank. I was reading one of the analyses we have here, and it pointed out the sheer irony of this character.
It's brilliant.
He is standing under the exact same light as the disciples. He is looking at the exact same face. He is hearing the exact same words. And he is entirely clueless.
The innkeeper is really the anchor of the painting's central theme. He represents the profound difference between merely looking at something and truly seeing it.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Caravaggio is demonstrating that the ultimate truth can be sitting 2 feet away from your face, fully illuminated, and you can still remain completely in the dark.
Which feels like a direct challenge to whoever is looking at the painting, doesn't it?
Oh, without a doubt.
He doesn't want you to just be a spectator looking at a neat historical scene through a window. He wants to know if you're going to see the truth or if you're going to be like the innkeeper.
And he accomplishes that challenge through a brilliant manipulation of physical space. I mean, a painting is fundamentally a flat, static surface.
Right.
But Caravaggio understood how to trick the human brain into feeling like that surface has depth and volume.
You can see that immediately in the staging. Like if you look at the table they're sitting around, the entire front edge, the side closest to you, the viewer is completely empty.
Yes, deliberately so.
There is no chair, there is no serving platter blocking the way. It is this wide open gap in the composition.
It is an architectural invitation. He has deliberately left a 4th seat open.
I love that concept, the 4th seat.
By removing any physical barrier at the front of the table, he is extending an invitation for you to pull up a chair, sit down with these men, and basically participate in the meal.
Okay, so if I mentally pull up that chair and take my seat, the first thing I'm looking directly at is Christ in the center. But, and tell me if I'm wrong here, this is a very weird version of Jesus.
It is highly unusual, yes.
He doesn't have the iconic beard. His hair is a bit softer. His cheeks are actually flush and rosy. Why would Caravaggio paint him looking so young and honestly almost completely different from every other painting of him?
It traces back to the specific theology of the Emmaus story. Remember, his 2 closest friends walked with him for hours and did not recognize him.
Oh, right. So he had to look different.
Exactly. The text implies his appearance was somehow altered. Caravaggio is illustrating a body that has conquered death. It is no longer the bruised, broken, and bearded figure that hung on the cross 3 days prior.
It is a transformed post-resurrection body.
Precisely.
I want to push back on something related to that, though. A lot of the art history papers we reviewed spend pages obsessing over the shadow on the wall right behind Christ's head.
Ah, yes. The famous shadow.
Because of the way the light hits him from above, he casts this dark, looming shadow. And the scholars argue this is a deliberate silhouette meant to represent a lingering, unseen spiritual presence in the room. Like a divine halo made of darkness.
That's the prevailing academic theory.
But honestly, look at the painting. Isn't it way more likely that Caravaggio was just painting in a dark basement without any windows, and the model literally cast a shadow on the wall? Like, why do art historians always jump straight to ghost?
It is a completely fair skepticism.
Yeah.
Sometimes the shadow really is just a shadow.
Right.
But in Caravaggio's case, we have to look at the mechanics of how he actually worked to understand why scholars insist it is intentional.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, we have the writings of a 17th century biographer named Giovanni Pietro Bellori, who meticulously documented Caravaggio's studio process.
So we know exactly how he lit the room.
We do. Bellori noted that Caravaggio absolutely refused to paint in natural daylight. He would literally board up the windows of his studio to make it pitch black.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Then he would introduce a single, highly controlled, sharp beam of light, usually a lantern hung high up near the ceiling.
Okay, so it's less like a traditional art studio and more like the lighting rig for a theater stage.
Precisely. This technique is called chiaroscuro. The intense, dramatic contrast between blinding light and absolute, impenetrable darkness.
So he's essentially controlling exactly where your eyes go.
Yes. So when Caravaggio paints a shadow, it is never an accident of the room. It is a highly calculated choice.
I see.
Bellori wrote that Caravaggio used this absolute darkness to give his figures psychological weight and force.
That makes a lot of sense.
The pitch black background strips away all distractions. It makes the scene feel like it is taking place in the only illuminated spot in the entire universe. So that dark, halo-like shadow behind Christ
It's on purpose.
is a very deliberate use of negative space to signify something otherworldly breaking into our reality.
And when you look closely at where that theatrical spotlight lands, it catches some wild details. Look at the disciple on the right side of the table, the one wearing the shell on his chest.
The scallop shell, yes, identifying him as a pilgrim.
Right. As he realizes who he's looking at, he throws both of his arms out wide in absolute shock. But if you look at the geometry of his arms, the angle perfectly mimics the cross from the crucifixion.
It's a stunning detail.
It's this incredibly subtle, unconscious bodily echo of the trauma that happened 3 days earlier.
It bridges the agony of the past with a revelation of the present. And all of these elements, the working class realism, the theatrical chiaroscuro lighting, the open fourth seat pulling you in,
It's all leading up to something.
they are all setting the stage for the most famous object in the entire painting.
Right, and this is where we get to the secret that stayed hidden for 400 years. Sitting right on the front edge of the table, precariously close to us, is a woven wicker basket overflowing with food.
The basket is an exceptional example of trompe-l'œil, a French term meaning to deceive the eye.
Because it looks so 3D.
Exactly. Caravaggio painted the basket so that a good portion of it literally hangs off the edge of the table. If you were standing in front of the canvas, it looks as though a stiff breeze would tip the basket over, spilling the fruit out of the painting and onto the gallery floor.
It totally shatters the boundary between the painting and the real world. But the fruit inside the basket isn't just a late afternoon snack. One of the research papers breaks down how incredibly loaded this bowl is with symbolism.
We have to remember the concept of visual literacy here. In the early 1600s, the vast majority of the peasant class was illiterate. They could not read a Bible.
But they could look at pictures.
Exactly. They were highly trained to read the visual language of a painting.
So when they looked at this basket, they weren't seeing dessert, they were reading a theological textbook.
Yes, take the apple at the front of the basket. It has a visible wormhole and a spot of rot.
Oh, right.
Even a peasant would instantly recognize that as the symbol of temptation, original sin, and the fall of humanity in Eden,
And right next to it, you have dark, heavy clusters of grapes.
which would immediately read as the Eucharistic wine, or the blood of Christ.
Wow. And tucked behind those, you have pomegranates. A pomegranate that is burst open, revealing the bright red seeds inside, was a widely understood symbol of the resurrection, right?
Correct. The tough outer skin is the tomb, and the bursting red seeds represent life breaking forth from death.
So art historians have been studying this beautifully painted, symbolic bowl of fruit for 4 centuries, but just a few years ago, modern conservationists were examining the painting.
This is my favorite part.
They used ultra-high-resolution macro photography, the kind of digital imaging that lets you zoom in so far you can practically see the individual bristles of Caravaggio's paintbrush.
The detail is insane.
And while they were zoomed in on the woven wicker pattern of the basket, they found something that absolutely blew my mind.
It is one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern art history, precisely because it proves you can stare at a masterpiece for 400 years and still completely miss the punchline.
Let me try to describe this so you can visualize it. Picture the front of the wicker basket. The woven twigs are detailed and realistic, but right in the center, there is a spot where the wicker is slightly frayed.
Just a tiny imperfection.
Yeah, one single thin twig has snapped and bows outward, creating a very distinct sweeping upper curve. If you trace that curve, it aligns perfectly with the dark shadow trapped inside the weave just below it.
Forming the other half.
Right. That shadow forms a second lower curve going in the exact opposite direction. Where those 2 curves intersect, they form the unmistakable outline of a fish, the Ichthys.
The Ichthys was the original secret symbol of the Christian faith. During the first few centuries of the Roman Empire, professing your belief could literally get you thrown to the lions or executed.
You had to be incredibly careful.
You could not safely wear a cross, nor could you openly identify yourself to strangers.
The way one of the historical sources described it was basically like a visual secret handshake.
That's a great analogy.
Imagine you are in an ancient marketplace talking to someone you suspect might share your faith, but you can't be sure. While you're chatting, you casually drag your walking stick in the dirt, drawing just one single curved line, a half moon.
Just testing the waters.
Then you wait. If the stranger looks at it, understands the code, and uses their foot to draw the opposite curve in the dirt, completing the fish boom, you instantly recognize each other as safe.
And if they don't?
If the stranger just looks at you like you're crazy, you simply scuff out the line in the dirt and move on.
Notice how Caravaggio mimics that exact mechanic in the physical paint. He deliberately builds the fish into the basket, but he only illuminates the top curve of the twig in the light.
That is so cool.
He leaves the bottom curve entirely hidden in the dark shadow.
He is literally drawing half the fish in the dirt. He is challenging you, sitting in that fourth seat, to complete the puzzle in your own mind.
Exactly.
He wants to know, do you see the secret code, or are you just staring blankly like the innkeeper?
But what the macro photography revealed is that the brilliance doesn't stop with the wicker. Caravaggio actually hid a second fish.
Wait, really? Oh, right, the shadow.
Below the basket, where it hangs off the table. The basket casts a dark shadow onto the crisp white tablecloth. But the shape of that cast shadow makes absolutely no sense based on the physics of the lighting.
It's manipulated.
Highly manipulated.
Yeah.
The shadow itself is perfectly shaped to form a massive fish, complete with a crescent-shaped tail fin at the back, seemingly swimming right toward the basket.
It's unbelievable. He hid one fish in the illuminated wicker and a second fish constructed entirely out of negative space on the table. It is just a staggering level of intention.
It really is.
This entire painting is fundamentally about the psychological concept of recognizing the truth. And he literally hid the historical symbol for secret recognition in the center of the canvas.
It is a masterclass in embedding thematic meaning into the very architecture of the paint.
It's brilliant. But, and this is where it gets heavy looking at the rest of our source material, this incredibly rich, inviting, secret-filled world didn't last. Because 5 years later, in 1606, Caravaggio actually painted this exact scene again.
Yes. The second version of the Supper at Emmaus is currently held in the Pinacoteca di Brera in Milan, and comparing the two side by side is a deeply jarring experience.
I am looking at the scan of the Milan version right now. It is incredibly stark.
It's completely different.
The beautiful basket of fruit is completely gone. There is no trompe l'oeil illusion teetering on the edge. There is no hidden fish in the shadows. Even the staging is different.
The whole vibe has shifted.
Yeah, the open space at the front of the table, that fourth seat inviting you in, has basically vanished. The figures are crowded together. My first thought when I saw this was, like, did he just get tired of his old tricks?
Like an artist evolving?
Yeah, like when a band decides to go acoustic for their second album and abandons the heavy production, was he just trying out a minimalist style?
It is a logical assumption to make about an artist. But a stylistic choice alone cannot account for the sheer tonal shift in the Milan painting.
Okay, so what happened?
To understand why it looks so desolate, we have to look at the biographical research on what happened to Caravaggio in those intervening 5 years. His life did not just change, it violently collapsed.
He had always been a brawler. Right.
Yes, he always carried a sword and had a volatile temper. But between 1601 and 1606, his behavior spiraled completely out of control.
How bad did it get?
He was constantly in court. He threw a plate of hot artichokes in a waiter's face. He was sued for throwing rocks through his landlady's window. And then, in May of 1606, he killed a man named Ranuccio Tomasoni in a sword fight, likely over a gambling debt or a disputed tennis match.
Oh my God, so he becomes a murderer.
And a fugitive. A death warrant was issued by the Pope, meaning anyone in the Papal States had the legal right to execute Caravaggio on site and claim a bounty.
That is terrifying.
He fled Rome in the dead of night, wounded and terrified. He painted the Milan version of the Supper at Emmaus while he was on the run, hiding in the Sabine Mountains.
Wow. And suddenly the starkness of that painting makes perfect sense. The nightmare of his reality just bled directly onto the canvas.
Look at the Chiaroscuro in the second version. The shadows are no longer the dramatic, theatrical lighting of a master storyteller pointing you toward a divine truth.
They feel completely different.
The darkness in the Milan painting is oppressive. It feels heavy, almost suffocating. The space is entirely claustrophobic.
The first painting feels like this shared mystical space where you are invited to connect with the divine. But the second painting, it feels like a dark projection of his own isolated, consumed soul.
He took away the fourth seat.
He removed the invitation.
It is the tragic decline of a genius. He removed the invitation for connection, perhaps because, as a fugitive and a murderer, he felt he no longer deserved it, or he simply no longer believed redemption was possible for him.
That's incredibly sad.
The light was quite literally leaving his world, leading up to his mysterious death, just a few years later on a beach in Tuscany.
Which really brings us back to where we started, that split-second shock of recognition. When Caravaggio was at the height of his powers, he took an ordinary dinner and used gritty realism dramatic theatrical lighting, and a brilliant manipulation of physical space to capture the ultimate aha moment.
He captured it perfectly.
And within that moment, he engineered a secret code, a fish woven into wicker and cast in shadow that teetered on the edge of a table for 4 centuries, waiting for digital cameras to finally catch up to his genius.
And that reality leaves you with a truly fascinating question to consider.
What's that?
If an artist like Caravaggio could hide a profound symbol of secret recognition in plain sight for 400 years, perfectly balanced on the edge of a table, what other details are hiding in the shadows of the world's great masterpieces?
That's a great point.
What other secrets are out there right now, just waiting for the right light or the right observer to finally see them?
It really makes you wonder how many things we look at every single day without actually seeing them. The next time you find yourself staring at something familiar, maybe take a moment to look a little closer at the shadows or the frayed edges of the things you take for granted. You might just have a moment of recognition of your own.